more of what President Trump has to say, and I like to be surrounded by like-minded people.
Voters gather in 2 West Coast states to hear from the top of the GOP ticket. And at the same time, Democrats work to build on momentum from their national convention.
Everyone here tonight is part of the greatest political movement.
Good evening. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Crystal Bailey. Former President Trump just wrapped a tour of 2 West Coast states in one day. He got a boost during today's West Coast swing with a new show of support. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joined the former president on stage at Glendale, Arizona's Desert Diamond Arena this afternoon. The Independent made a move to suspend his campaign today and throw support for Trump. The endorsement helped set the tone for today's rally.
Thank you very much, and a very big hello, Arizona. Hello, Phoenix. I'm thrilled to be back in this incredible state with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. That's what you are. You built our country.
Fox 10's Brian Webb spoke to a political consultant about how the endorsement could shake up the race for president.
I've made the heart-wrenching decision to suspend my campaign and to support President Trump.
A Kennedy has done the unthinkable, throw the family name behind a Republican candidate.
This decision is agonizing for me because of the difficulties it causes my wife and my children and my friends. But I have the certainty that this is what I've meant to do.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the son of Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of John F. Kennedy, calls it a spiritual decision based on his 3 main passions: fighting censorship, endless wars, and chronic disease like obesity.
70 or 77% of school lunches are processed foods. There's no vegetables. There's nothing that you would want to eat. We are just poisoning the poor citizens, and that's why they have the highest chronic disease burden of anybody, any demographic in our country, and the highest in the world.
Kennedy is polling at about 5% nationwide and his campaign running out of money. Kennedy said he doesn't want to become a spoiler candidate.
Normally endorsements don't mean much, but this is not your normal endorsement. This is a guy folding his campaign. His name is Kennedy. And since it's going to be really close, every vote's going to count, and I think Donald Trump will get a few more votes.
Kennedy reportedly met with Donald Trump in recent weeks and says he was promised a post if Trump is elected.
I felt that if I refused this opportunity, I would not be able to look myself in the mirror, knowing that I could have saved lives of countless children and reversed this country's chronic disease epidemic.
That was Fox 10's Brian Webb reporting. Former President Trump made a stop in another battleground state in the West today, spending time at a Las Vegas restaurant this morning to discuss his plans to eliminate taxes on tips for people working in the hospitality industry. He also took jabs at his opponent.
Kamala Harris is now pretending to endorse my policy. She's got a lot of other policies. She's a copycat. She's a flip-flopper. You know what a flip? She's the greatest flip-flopper in history. She went from communism to capitalism in about 2 weeks.
Earlier this month, Vice President Kamala Harris put out her own no tax on tips plan during a rally in Vegas. Sources close to the Harris campaign told the Washington Post she wants to tie legislation cutting taxes on tips to, quote, an increase to a national tipped minimum wage.
And it is my promise to everyone here, when I am president, we will continue our fight for working families of America. Including to raise the minimum wage and eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Neither candidate has said whether their plans would exempt tips from only income taxes, payroll taxes, or both. The payroll tax funds Social Security and Medicare. And the Democratic presidential nominee is back in Washington, D.C. tonight. Vice President Harris and her running mate greeted cheering crowds this afternoon as they left Chicago. Details of their first campaign stop following the Democratic National Convention have not been released. Sonoma State University political science professor David McEwen says the Harris campaign has seen a huge outpouring of enthusiasm and money.
This is going to be the most expensive presidential election in history, and Democrats have $600 million in which they're working with, and they're going to go over $1 billion because there's that much money out there. Can Donald Trump and Republicans meet that? That's a big test.
McEwen said the presidential debate next month could be critical, saying that if Donald Trump holds his own against Kamala Harris, the race could remain close up until the very end. And a wildfire in Wyoming keeping hundreds of firefighters busy tonight. New time-lapse video posted to social media gives you a sense of how much smoke the Fish Creek fire is sending into the air. This fire started with a lightning strike last week in the Bridger-Teton National Forest, about 60 miles northeast of Jackson. People in the area are being warned they may need to evacuate. Firefighters worry strong winds in the forecast will fuel flames over the weekend. So far, this fire has charred more than 9,000 acres. People watched fire destroy a historic baseball stadium in Southern California overnight. It's the same ballpark where the classic movie, A League of Their Own, was filmed. Fox 11's Gigi Graciette spoke with neighbors heartbroken to see what's left of it tonight.
It is the proverbial field of dreams, the J. Littleton Ballpark in Ontario. Today left a pile of smoldering wood and ash after a late-night fire Thursday. The fire started just before 11:30 p.m., with multiple people calling 911 to report the flames visible from blocks away. A second alarm quickly called, with extra resources brought in.
Unfortunately, the extent of the fire very early on has ended with the complete loss of our stadium.
The field, a landmark in Ontario where generations of families have grown up playing here. For Jesse Delgado, seeing the ruins today, well, it was enough to bring him to tears.
It was a monumental. It's very emotional because just being able to sit there in the stands and seeing it where it's at now, it's hurtful. So
it brings tears to your eyes because your kids played here.
And I got to actually hit the ball with big players here that were here filming.
The field, a local celebrity of sorts after being featured in countless movies, the most notable, A League of Their Own. But lately, residents say the baseball park, which had been closed, has been plagued with problems with the homeless breaking in. Police say several members of the unhoused community that live nearby were interviewed last night, but officially the fire is still under investigation. Meanwhile, Ontario Fire says they're bringing in an arson detection canine and also a cadaver dog to make sure there are no victims. In Ontario, Gigi Graciette.
Tens of thousands of Instagram users are waiting for the next post by Miracle Man Cash. Coming up, why he says he's directing people to money hidden in plain sight.
And in weather, here's our live camera looking above San Francisco. Some clouds, even a few showers over portions of Northern California today. We will have the weekend update coming up.
Why didn't they respond in an adequate fashion? Why did they wait 2 days to respond to us?
And lingering frustration for victims of Tropical Storm Hilary in the West. 1 year after the storm, first responders lay out why it took so long to get to some victims. 6 migrants hospitalized after falling from a wall along California's southern border. Customs and Border Patrol says agents found 4 men and 2 women from Colombia midday near the Otay Mesa port of entry in San Diego. San Diego Fire Rescue responded and took them to UC San Diego Medical Center for treatment for their injuries. No word on how serious the injuries were. Officials say injuries at the border wall are increasing after the Trump administration increased the height of the wall to 30 feet in some areas. So far this year, at least 6 migrants have died trying to climb the wall. And 2 West Coast states and 14 others are suing to end a federal program giving undocumented immigrants who are married to a U.S. citizen a path to citizenship. The policy was introduced by the White House back in June and started taking applications this week. To qualify, immigrants must be living continuously in the states for at least 10 years, not pose a security threat or have a criminal history, and must have married a citizen before the program was announced. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who filed the suit, says the program violates the Constitution and only worsens the border crisis. Idaho and Wyoming have joined the lawsuit. And Tropical Storm Hillary hit the Southwest a year ago with mud, flooding, trees down, roads washed out, just some of the problems left behind after the weather cleared. Tonight, many people in communities still working to recover have questions.
I'd like to know how they can prevent this from happening again. And why didn't they respond in an adequate fashion? Why did they wait 2 days to respond to us?
John Trad lives in Southern California's Coachella Valley, where Hillary's heavy rain sent mud rushing into his neighborhood. He thinks first responders were slow to help. Cathedral City's fire chief says emergency crews are learning from the experience.
I can tell you that we did everything we can and everything we could in that moment with the resources we had at that date and that time. We're in that next phase of preparing our people. So while they were very well trained, our city council, our city manager has added the resources to even do more training.
Fox 5's Shauna Kalafi shows us how these communities outside Las Vegas are cleaning up.
To be honest, when we heard about the storm, we didn't really think anything would come out of it. But what we got instead was a torrential river that came and destroyed this entire road.
It's been a year of rebuilding and recovery for Mount Charleston after Tropical Storm Hillary flooded roads and devastated neighborhoods.
The aftermath is what really hit us, how it destroyed our infrastructure, the water lines. We didn't have running water for about 2 months.
Mount Charleston Fire Captain Steve Clement was at the firehouse in Old Town the night Tropical Storm Hillary swept in. He says although they started preparing for the storm several days in advance, they weren't sure exactly where it was going to hit or how hard.
Got a phone call from the fire chief at the time, and he said, hey, can you look out the window? We're getting reports of major flooding across the bridge.
And when he looked out of the window, what he saw was rushing water covering this channel over the bridge and over the parking lot, all the way to the library on that hill. And he says the debris was piled even higher than that. And today, some of that debris still sitting here a year later.
It clicked right away that it was pretty serious. We started mobilizing resources from town that we had staged down there. The Air National Guard came up with some special units, and they were able to cross the waterways in some locations to really help us identify the residents that needed help.
The amount of rain and the volume and velocity of water was so powerful. It really took out pretty much a lot of infrastructure here in this canyon.
Now, Forest Service officials say that most of the road and home repairs are pretty much complete, but some trails on the mountain remain closed, with still no estimate for when they could reopen. Shauna Kalafi, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
And people in Hawaii are keeping a close eye on Tropical Storm Hone tonight. Satellite images posted online by Colorado State University show how the storm is swirling in the Pacific. Let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Mark Tamayo, who's tracking the storm's path and parts of Hawaii most at risk.
Hi there. Yeah, we are talking about a strengthening tropical storm over the next few days. In fact, the Big Island already under a tropical storm watch. You can see it shaded here. So right now, Hone is winds of 50 miles an hour, moving to the west at 16. The current position about 470 miles east-southeast of Hilo. And as you can see, there's the forecast track into the weekend, and possibly later Sunday and early Monday, we could be talking about a Category 1 hurricane. So the main track is to the south of the islands, but getting very close potentially to the Big Island, as you can see, as we do move into the weekend, especially for late Saturday and into Sunday. Could briefly be a hurricane with a Category 1 storm later in the weekend. Now, the satellite and the radar across the west, we're talking about an unusually cool system moving into portions of the west. This typically might see that in September and October, even out toward, we'll talk about that in a second, but out toward Arizona, still tracking some rain showers, as you can see, developing closer to the Phoenix area this evening. Also out toward the Bay Area, Northern California. Look at all that action, especially right around Eureka. And then up in the Pacific Northwest, Portland and Seattle talking about some rain bands coming on board. Northern Cascades could pick up significant rainfall in Seattle today. This was the scene, some fresh rain raindrops on this camera lens. 0.46 in terms of rainfall in Seattle. The temperature a cool 59 degrees. In San Francisco, the same system producing some cloud cover in the Bay Area and even a few scattered showers. 69 degrees. And in the Phoenix area, picking up this camera shot, picking up on the cloud cover throughout the day. Some scattered clouds and the showers were tracking on the radar. A high today still of 109 degrees. Phoenix has cooled off to 98. Salt Lake City's 87. Portland, Oregon, 61 degrees. And here is the forecast for your Saturday. Rainfall chances going up in the Seattle area for tomorrow. The chance of a shower in Denver, and then some clouds for San Francisco in the morning, clearing in the afternoon hours. And as you can see, it's warm in Southern California, upper 70s, and hot out toward the Phoenix area. Temperatures once again topping 100 degrees. So here's the active weather pattern once again into your Saturday, that area of low pressure. And as we take this and put this into motion into Sunday, we will see things trying to clear out for the second half of the weekend. In Phoenix, as you can see, temperatures warming back up into the triple digits, not 110, 112 degrees, but still topping 100. And we could still have some clouds drift into the area throughout the day. Here is the weekend forecast and into early next week. So the main action up in Seattle will be for tomorrow, for Saturday. And then as you can see out in Denver, remains unsettled for Saturday and Sunday, with still the possibility of some thunderstorms.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Monsoons swept through the Phoenix area last night. As you can see, the storm toppled trees across the city, and strong winds, rain, and hail left damage behind. Power outages were also reported. In Scottsdale, a Fox 10 photojournalist captured video of a driver who tried to go through high water and ended up getting stuck. Police called a tow truck to get the vehicle out of the water. And Utah has performed its first ever mortality study on people experiencing homelessness. The report was presented at Utah's Capitol Thursday, sharing that 216 people died last year unsheltered, which is 10 times the rate of the general population. This came to light after the state's Department of Health and Human Services added the question, is the person homeless, to their death data collection. The data also shows people experiencing homelessness are dying much younger than the rest of the population.
The mean age of death for people experiencing homelessness during 2023 was 56 years of age. Compare that to the general population, or our housed population, 72 years of age.
The top causes of death were chronic diseases like heart issues, as well as diabetes and substance abuse. Numbers from Utah's report are expected to be used to craft future legislation as advocates push for more funding and policy shifts. And just over a month after the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump, several Secret Service agents have been put on leave as the investigation into the shooting continues. Fox's C.B. Cotton has the latest.
Multiple Secret Service agents placed on leave following the attempted assassination of President Trump. 4 of those agents from the Pittsburgh field office, including the special agent in charge. And 1 agent is from Trump's personal protection team. Ahead of the July 13th rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, Trump's team and the Secret Service were aware of an Iranian plot to kill the former president. Although there is no connection between the rally shooter and Iran, the agents will now have to answer for the lack of security while knowing there was an active threat.
But the question is, what did these agents that were suspended, what duties did they have, and why weren't their duties fulfilled?
There is also a separate FBI investigation into the shooting, which in part is looking to see if criminal charges for negligence should be filed.
There is both an internal and an external independent investigation of what happened. I know that they will provide lessons learned to prevent such a failure from happening in the future.
Meanwhile, President Trump speaking about the Secret Service Thursday, saying while mistakes were made, he respects the agency.
And I have great respect for Secret Service, the job they do, including a month and a half ago when they were jumping on top of me with bullets flying right at them.
There will be a bipartisan congressional visit to the rally site on Monday as lawmakers continue to look for answers and hold people accountable. In New York, C.B. Cotton, Fox News.
And an invasive species threatening in Washington City. How a species of mussels could cost the state millions. And piles of cash lying around for people in Colorado to find. Finders are keepers in this unique social media trend started by a local hoping to spread happiness. Over 100 leopard frogs now called Washington's Columbia National Wildlife Refuge their new home. After the Oregon Zoo released the endangered frogs into the wild on August 15th, the zoo reared the frogs as tadpoles after Washington's Department of Fish and Wildlife collected the eggs. Northern leopard frogs once had a large population across North America, living in Washington, Oregon, and even Western Canada. They've been on Washington's endangered species list since 1999. And wildlife officials are asking pet stores in Washington to be cautious after a highly invasive mussel was discovered at an aquarium wholesaler in Renton. Experts say zebra mussels have the power to decimate an entire ecosystem by multiplying rapidly. Back in the 80s, someone accidentally introduced the zebra mussel into the Great Lakes. Decades later, they completely canvassed the bottom of Lake Erie and started clogging pipes and damaging boats.
In Washington, we love to spend a lot of time outdoors on public lands, boating, kayaking, paddleboarding. Ultimately, we could lose those activities. They're razor sharp. They can cut you if you're walking barefoot on the shoreline. There's instances where they're actually attached to floating plants, and as you're swimming, you can get sliced while you're swimming.
It's estimated those monster mussels could cost the state up to $100 million per year to protect Washington's power and water facilities. And 2 astronauts stuck in space will soon know if and how they're coming home. NASA is expected to have a decision by tomorrow on whether astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams will come back on the Boeing Starliner spacecraft that took them to the International Space Station in June. The Starliner took the pair as a test for routine flights, but its spraying leaks and some thrusters failed. NASA is deciding if the Starliner is safe to bring them back. SpaceX could also retrieve them, but not until February. Now, some positive news today on inflation after several turbulent months. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell hints it may be time to drop interest rates. Powell, speaking at the 2024 Jackson Hole Economic Symposium today, said, with inflation nearly under control and the job market cooling, it may be time to start cutting its key interest rate, which is currently at a 23-year high.
Our objective has been to restore price stability while maintaining a strong labor market, avoiding the sharp increases in unemployment that characterized earlier disinflationary episodes when inflation expectations were less well anchored. While the task is not complete, we have made a good deal of progress toward that outcome.
Powell cautioned the situation is not over, but many conditions that sent inflation soaring after the pandemic are cooling down. The Fed chair did not say when rate cuts would begin, but the Federal Reserve is widely expected to announce a modest cut in its benchmark rate during its mid-September meeting. And finally tonight, money up for grabs in Colorado. A Boulder man is posting on Instagram hints to where he's hiding money in public. He's become known as Miracle Man Cash on social media. His posts come with instructions for followers to let him know when they find the money. Of course, finders keepers. Miracle Man Cash prefers to remain anonymous. He says he's doing this to spread light and help create a strong sense of community. His mystery stashes of cash range from $20 to hundreds of dollars. There's always a $2 bill included. He says that $2 bill is for good luck. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. You can stay up to date on all of the stories we're covering online. Just go to westcoastwrap.com and stream all of our shows on your smart TV by downloading the Fox Local app. Have a great night. We leave you with this shot of the Bay Area.